Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Choose Life. I'm Pastor Chuck. I have the honor and privilege to introduce to you some of our ministry partners and friends. Today we have Chris Slattery again from EMC Frontline Pregnancy Centers in New York City, and also Frank McGuire. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Awesome, glad to be here.
Good deal. It looks like Chris got a little frozen, and we're excited. He gave us some website information and freeultrasounds.com. That's your website, correct? Does that look familiar to you? What is it?
Yeah,
What is it?
That looks like it's freeultrasounds.com, one of the websites.
Ultrasounds, plural, right?
Well, yes, sir.
Okay, there we go. How about that? Does that look better?
That looks much better.
That's the one. There you go. Spelling counts when it comes to websites and email.
Sure. Many ultrasounds on that site.
Yeah, Chris, you froze up a little bit and you came back. Welcome back, brother. Good to see you. How you feeling?
A little weak, but mentally somewhat sound. That's debatable, depending on who you're talking to.
Now, you're a sharp guy. You're funny, too. You got a great sense of humor. And
I put my fingers into a pencil sharpener. Is that smart? You want me
well, I don't say we don't. We're as smart as we can be. We still can tend to do stupid things. I once heard a preacher say we're one decision away from stupid. So, but as we get older, we get wiser and good, better, best ways of doing things.
Awesome. We're on the verge of some big breakthroughs in the pro-life movement for pregnancy centers, and Frank and I would like to speak to them. I'd like to address the first, just an introduction of who I am and who Frank is. Yeah. Frank can introduce himself, but I am the senior dean of the pro-life activist movement in New York City. Been active since the 70s. I know I don't look a day over 45, but I started as a toddler. No, I'm kidding. But I founded the first pregnancy centers in New York City. We've experimented with centers all over the country in 10 states, but we're hunkered down with 3 centers in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, New York. Listeners, viewers may not know that New York City is the abortion capital of America, meaning we have more abortions than any other city. We have the highest rate of abortion. 1 out of 3 babies conceived and not miscarried are aborted voluntarily, some by coercion. We have the most abortion activist organizations based in a major city. The abortion industry was birthed by Dr. Bernard Nathanson and Lawrence later in New York City. Frank can address an article he discovered later when we talk about RU46 and that issue. Remember, Frank, to bring up the Mother Jones article that you uncovered. But I have also engaged in sidewalk counseling since the 70s and have hundreds of counselors on the sidewalks at abortion facilities. I've pioneered an internship program that brings in people from around the world to work with us. I pioneered a major city mobile clinic program in the mid-2000s, and we were copied by Save the Storks and Vans for Life and others. And others have copied our internship program in different parts of the country. So we've been innovative, and we constantly are trying to launch into innovative ways to market. Today, the name of the game is marketing, and on Friday I head to New York and San Diego to the social media marketing conference. Everything is digital.
Yeah.
The world is digital.
Yeah.
All our clients are reached digitally. It's a very competitive business. It's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
The average pregnancy center director is clueless as to how to properly market, and you need experts. So I'll get back to you after Frank introduces himself
Yeah.
with a little
Good.
background on his history and his current activities.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Frank. I got your website up too, by the way, in the corner there. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
you and how you answered the call and joined the fight.
Sure. So thanks, Chris. And that is the website up. That's just an authority site website that we use out there to get in front of abortion-minded women. There's about 1,500 pregnancy centers up there where we provide them all with a free listing. So we drive traffic to this site as a strategy, and then they can zoom into their location that's closest to them, and they could get a free ultrasound from any one of those centers. That's just one.
Amazing.
Yeah, you're popping all
Cool.
of them now. You zooming
Yeah.
in.
This is great. Wow.
Yeah, so we use that as part of a three-pronged strategy approach. My background is first telecommunications, and then I moved from telecommunications into digital targeting when I basically saw that Google stole Yellow Pages. That's what Google Maps is today, is just Yellow Pages digitized.
Right.
And when Google did that, being in the telecommunications industry, I decided to start to follow the money, and that was about 12 years ago, into the digital space and figure out what digital was, because I saw that part of the revenue was that was on AT&T's portfolio, was the most profitable part of AT&T, and they took it off their off of AT&T. So I started to get involved with all this digital technology at that point. And I was doing this for car dealerships, large companies like United Way, digital targeting. Back 12 years ago, when you were doing this and you tell people you could do this, they didn't believe you. So it was hard to drag people to it. But once you got to it, it was really great. And about 10 years ago, I went to a golf outing. That's kind of how I got into this movement. For a pregnancy center out in Las Vegas. And at the time, we were breaking in this digital targeting technology, writing algorithms to pick up people looking to terminate their leases on their cars. And it was just as easy to write algorithms to looking for women looking to terminate their pregnancies early. So we used the same strategies, the same technology, and we put it in place in this pregnancy center out in Las Vegas. And that center became the busiest center in the country. As last year before Dobbs, they were saving 300 to 360 babies a month out of that center using this technology. And then the Lord just dragged me into it deeper to get more involved with it. And about 3 years ago, I had reconstructive heart surgery. And as I recovered from that, I shut down the rest of the business for car dealerships and large companies and took all the technology that I had on that side of the house, made it HIPAA compliant, and started bringing it into pregnancy centers. So that's kind of what I do now. It's very disruptive. We're able to get in front of the persons, I should say, because there's more males in the abortion industry in looking for abortions than there are women.
Wow.
And so we're able to disrupt the males and then get in front of the women as well. And then we want to get them into a place like Chris's to get an ultrasound and see that see what's really inside of them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Again, along the way, I always say, before we had a clue, God knew. Even Chris being in marketing before, and then now all of a sudden, we used to be, trying to be successful. Now we're living for significance, and you've got the cause, the passion, what you're good at and what you're passionate about. That's where you find your calling, right? Right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was blessed with having worked in 3 ad agencies and in ad sales for some prestigious business magazines like Financial World and The Economist. And I grew up in an advertising household. My father was an advertising guru from the 50s past, and he was the dean of the travel advertising industry in New York. I learned under Bill Bernbach, one of the great advertising deans of genius. And, basically, in this day and age, any pregnancy center that doesn't invest a substantial amount of money, minimum 3 to 5,000 a month in advertising,
Yeah.
is just not going to be able to compete with the abortionists,
Right.
and not going to be able to get in sufficient number of clients to make it worth it. But my program, as I'm in the most expensive media market in America, and I'm competing with 10 major abortion advertisers who are spending multi-millions.
Right.
So the cost per thousand, cost per click to compete with these guys is just enormous. And Frank and I analyze and talk every day.
Right.
I'm not exaggerating. Frank and
Yeah.
I talk every day, analyzing our advertising, analyzing our messages, analyzing our results. So Frank introduced a whole new way to reach women and men. Although we've cut back on the men because to save money, but we are advertising on people's apps that they're using on their phones and on websites that they go to with ads based on a logarithm. Frank has used that term, and for many people, what the heck is an algorithm? What is that? Like, I'm not a computer scientist.
Well, thanks to Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff, cancel culture, I think people are starting to get educated.
Are you breaking up?
You realize that things run in the background, and they bury things that you don't want to see. They bump up the things they want you to see, and yeah, there's big money in all that. Yeah.
This show is out in the open, so I don't want Frank to give away all our trade secrets. Exactly how he comes up with his algorithm, because only known pro-lifers should this be shared with. Am I right, Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
don't
It's
opponents, we don't want the digital marketing companies bailing out on us.
Exactly.
And this is always a risk. See, I met Frank in July of last summer, and I told him and his organization and some of his major backers, I said to him, like, within days, we're going to see the largest suppression of pregnancy centers and our advertising that you've ever seen. And Frank, did it happen?
It not only did it happen, it was happening as you were telling us, because Chris was receiving phone calls from Google verifying whether or not his locations did abortion.
Wow.
So we knew it was going to come. I had no idea. I'm the optimist, right? We got Dobbs, and I'm like, this is great. We'll just digital dome. We'll digital dome the states and keep these women and babies at home. They won't be traveling to get abortions elsewhere.
Right.
I couldn't have been more wrong.
Digital dome. Nobody knows what that is.
Digital dome is just we call it digital dome. It's like a digital net where we're able to put over a region, building, street corner, for instance, and go out as far as we want. And we're able to serve ads to those phones, and then layer on those algorithms, of course. Is
that also called geo-targeting?
Some people call it geofencing, but that's really a bad term. That's kind of a new term that kind of new for about 7 years now. But whenever we hear that term, we know it's fairly newbie into the industry. We run away from. Geofencing can get you in trouble. For some, listen, for a traditional business that's a brick and mortar, it could be good. But for this for this movement, and sorry, I call it an industry because I'm still fairly new, 3 years into both feet into the pro-life movement.
Right.
It's not a good tactic, and there's been some marketing companies that have used it and gotten into some trouble doing it. We don't do anything like that. We do it. It's quite different what we do than that. So I would advise anyone, if they ever hear geofencing in the pro-life space or any type of medical space, to run from that. That's really dirty data.
Let me explain this in layman's terms.
Yeah.
That basically, 10 years ago, most people were getting their first cell phones 15 years ago. And most of them were flip phones. They weren't sophisticated. They didn't have You could do phone and text. They didn't have, Wi-Fi. They didn't have web browsing. They didn't
Right.
have screens. They didn't
Right.
have
Yeah. It's
apps.
unbelievable what we have now. It's just
Now everyone,
smartphones are smarter than most people.
now everyone that comes into our offices has a cell phone, bar none. I don't care if they just arrived over the southern border. Uh, Uncle Joe gave them a cell phone when they arrived, so we can get messages to them based on search habits for key websites, key apps
Yeah.
that indicate they're pregnant, they're looking for abortion, thinking about abortion. Now, we'll, of course, get some waste. You could get
Right.
You can't, it's a perfect science, correct, Frank?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I look at it, for every dollar that you waste on the wrong target is a dollar you could have put on the right target. So
Yeah.
we really watch the algorithm. And when Dobbs happened, we used to be in this small space of the only people who were reading abortion content were people playing abortion, the pro-life industry, and the pro-aborts. That's it. When Dobbs hit, abortion became everywhere. It's on all the news sites. So one of the things we had to do was shut down news sites, because we don't want to hit the pro-life people who are reading about abortion, and we don't want to hit the pro-aborts. So that's one of the tactics that we really had to.
You can waste a lot of advertising for people who are just, they're groupies for pro-life or pro-abortion advocacy, and they're just, reading articles about the politics of abortion,
Right.
and that we don't want them because they're not pregnant.
Exactly. So we had to pull back from that. And the biggest problem in the pro-life industry is that the funding doesn't make it down to the pregnancy centers.
Right. Yeah.
Our biggest pro-life groups are like 50, 60 million dollars from Susan B. Anthony list. You get 10 to 12 million from American Life League and Priests for Life. 20 to 25 million raised by Live Action in California, or Students for Life out of Virginia. And these organizations are not putting a penny into the pregnancy centers.
Right.
So the pregnancy centers are we're scrappy, and in some parts of the country, here's the irony. The easiest place to raise money is in the red states.
Right.
But most of the red states have now outlawed abortion. So the hardest place to raise money is in the blue states, where I am. And our abortion numbers for the city are up. They're up for most of the major blue state, major cities. And pregnancy centers in these states don't have as much of a base of support as needed. So I'm engaging in a new national digital campaign to find more donors. Look, direct mail is a very expensive game to acquire your donors, and it takes a lot of investment. You're going to lose money in the upfront mailings. You're not going to make it back for a couple of years. We're trying to do a cheaper outreach digitally, using these techniques of these domes to find people, tracking those that come to our website. Like, for instance, we have an ad campaign going on the most prominent U.S. Canadian website called lifesitenews.com. Everybody that's watching this program should be following lifesitenews.com.
Yeah.
This site is brilliant. It gives, they have like 15 new stories a day.
Let me bring it up. I have your Frontline Pregnancy Center website up. We'll take a look at that too. And I love your little pop-up there.
EMC Frontline is our website. That's me and what we call a pop-up. We call it a crisp pop. So you click on that little button under my hat, and I give a little presentation. And then those are videos of our work. A lot of those videos you created. I had, full disclosure. I hired Chuck and his brother Frank to create documentaries for me and many videos.
Yeah.
And he's done a wonderful job to, um, and he does this for other nonprofits, not just pro-life groups, Christian groups. He gives profiles of them. They use multiple camera angles, great audio, great video editing, and they bring the apostolate and the ministries of Christian groups to life. And this is what Chuck does, and so kudos to Chuck for being a modestly priced documentarian. We're going to be heading to the National Religious Broadcasters Conference in May,
Oh yeah.
where he's going to get some more exposure to potential clients that are many Christian ministries that are doing good work across the globe, primarily in the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
And we're in the digital age, and there's so much content out there.
Yeah.
That we are using video more than ever to try and engage the public. This is critical.
Yeah, right. It's the National Religious Broadcasters. Everybody in Christian film, radio, television. I met Mike Lindell in 2019 after he helped fund the Unplanned movie, the story about Abby Johnson leaving Planned Parenthood because she finally, after 10 or 12 years being executive director, she saw uh, an abortion being performed under the ultrasound and actually saw the baby trying to run away from the suction thing, and it just blew her mind, just wrecked her world. And now she's, I think not everybody knows the story about Abby Johnson, but it's pretty popular now, right? And
Abby's work, came out with a second book. The first book was Unplanned, and then that led to a movie. She's working on another movie. I just saw Abby at the CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference. President Trump spoke there. Mike Lindell had a booth, Lindell TV or something like that. There were lots of conservatives with booths there, and Abby stole the show on abortion at a panel on main stage, and she's fantastic. So
what was
if you
the
guys,
website, the other website we were talking about, right? Was it? Everybody should go to. You said.
well, there's the NRB conference. There's emcfrontline.org.
And Right to Life, was it? LifeSite
I'm
News.
not
That's what it was. LifeSite News.
News.com, the news site. Yeah. Now we just had a breakthrough, and I think Frank is having trouble with his internet connection, so
Yeah,
I'll have to run with the next segment here.
Yeah.
We just had a breakthrough court victory last week that has repercussions across the country. It was a federal court case I brought in 2 federal jurisdictions, one suing the state of New York out of the Northern District based in Syracuse, and a second case against the city of New York based in what's called the Eastern District in Brooklyn, which covers. And the federal Second Circuit Court of Appeals heard an appeal from us because 3 years ago, the state case we filed was dismissed by the federal court in Syracuse.
Wow.
The case was called Slattery, yours truly, versus Hochul. For those not familiar with Hochul, Kathy Hochul is the governor of New York, and she replaced Andrew Cuomo, who was in for many years, and he had serious Me Too accusations and was forced to resign. So she was the interim governor and then was elected in November in a close race with a Republican who got more votes than any Republican in decades, like 3 million votes.
Wow.
In New York State. So anyway, she barraged us back in 2019. The city and the state created what they called boss bills. Now these were bills that were labor law oriented. They were regulations under the labor law, Department of Labor. Every state has a Department of Labor that regulates unemployment and labor laws for the state. Well, this law, which was filed by the state of New York and the Attorney General and the Commissioner for the Department of Labor, and then amicus briefs came in from atheists, Catholics for Free Choice, all kinds of Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim groups filed in concert with the state,
Wow.
which was pathetic.
Yeah.
Choice is just a bogus group. It's not really a large group of Catholics. It's a fake group. But you had groups like, atheists for separation of church and state, and these kind of groups. So the law said basically you couldn't fire a pro-choice employee who came out of the closet, who you may have hired and didn't know. She later on disclosed to the staff or the clients or the students where she taught school that she was pro-choice, and she was, you don't like it, fire me. Well, guess what? You wouldn't be able to under this law. So I filed a suit in my individual capacity as a Christian and as the director of the Evergreen Association Expectant Mother Care EMC Pregnancy Centers. And guess what? Lo and behold, last week, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, after a 3-year wait, they said they would remand this case back to the lower court, and basically because we find this aspect of the law unconstitutional. And that is, this law does not allow for expressive association. And you cannot force a group to hire and retain employees that do not believe in the mission of the organization.
Right.
This is what these Muslims, Jews, and fake Christians wanted to do, and atheists wanted to do to us.
Right.
Force us to do their dirty work, their pro-abort dirty work. They wanted to corrupt us from within. Can you imagine having to keep an abortion activist on my employee payroll, or a Christian or Catholic school that had to retain pro-choice teachers, or who worked in the parish congregation office, or who was a youth minister?
Yeah, that's just ludicrous.
Or who betrayed the cause, who announces to the congregation, I'm for abortion, you can't fire me. How do you like them apples? I didn't like those apples. I didn't like them at all. They were sour apples.
For sure.
And won a victory that if the judge in Syracuse doesn't, obviously he's been forced to reopen the case. He's going to be forced to rule that the law is unconstitutional. And if he doesn't, he's going to get slapped back by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the second most prestigious court in the land. The first being the First Circuit in Washington, D.C. And we have a mirrored case, a similar case out of New York City. New York City enacted its own law. Now, by suing 3 years ago, we blocked the Department of Labor from enacting or creating any labor law regulations. So it never went into effect. Now it's never going to go into effect, because with the Supreme Court's decision, we see a right to association upheld in a prestigious federal court. You know what this is going to do? It's going to intimidate any other states from trying these bogus laws. It's going to intimidate them. And you know what? Some pregnancy centers say, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. Well, guess what? You've been the victim of politics.
Yeah, you have to.
Your advertising's been crushed by Google. Okay, you don't know how to respond. You're clamoring for solutions. Your offices are slow as hell. We constantly have to test and experiment with new ways to reach women. Otherwise, we get out competed by the abortion industry. New York City, this past fall, created a $1 million annual abortion call center to advertise free abortion
Wow.
coming in from all around the world
Right.
for free abortions, courtesy of the New York taxpayer.
That's crazy.
They put
Frank's
another
back,
$1
by the
million
way.
in advertising budgets. We have to compete with probably 20 to 30 million in advertising on a tiny budget.
Well,
We're gonna
abortion
have
is big money. You know, it's not always just a moral debate. It's a money debate. I mean, right? And
So Frank is telling me you got to spend $50,000 a month, and I said, "You're insane." But he's right. But can I raise it? I mean, maybe there's a donor on the show tonight that's going to say, "Man, these guys know what they're doing."
well, that's
But
why
they
we're
need
talking about this, because there's a lot of, you know, the body of Christ, the Apostle Paul says there's many members. And, you know, quite honestly, we got so used to watching doing the pastors and the priests and clergy do all the talking, we start thinking, hey, that must be the minister doing ministry. When Ephesians 4:11 says he gave some to be apostles, some prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, to equip the body for the work of ministry. The body, the body needs to kind of, you know, get together. Some have the financial resources, some have the technical expertise like Frank, some have the ability to counsel and have compassionate, you know, patience to talk to a gal face to face. Some know how to load up diapers in a storage unit after we get an 18-wheeler full, wipes, you know. I mean, there's lots of people that make it all happen. So that's why we do this show, to try to raise awareness. And I always say the worker bees make all the honey, right? We need more worker bees. Some people fund the work. So you're right. You never know who might see this. And after we rebroadcast this and boost it on Facebook, God will, I guess, have some cross divine appointments. The right person sees the right thing, so they can see their part in this giant parade.
I'd like to ask Frank, who had to drop off, I guess, for internet connection problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I did drop off the internet connection. I got it back. Nothing with your system. It's the system here. But yeah, Chris is exactly right. A car dealership, for instance, a good car dealership in a strong area, number one in the market, spends $50,000 a month to sell about 200 cars, right? That's the kind of effort that needs to be put into New York City. If you really want to make a dent, you got a man here who's hanging in there, ready to do it. But the funds making it down to his level, it just doesn't seem to get there. The population in New York, we were going through it the other night. What was it, Chris? Figured just short of 10 million? 10 million people?
8.75 million.
8.75. That's the ones who live there, not the ones who work there.
That's just New York City, the city of the 5 boroughs, right?
Not even that's the 3 boroughs, right? That's Brooklyn, Queens.
5 boroughs.
5 boroughs altogether. So to throw a $5,000 budget at 8 million people, it's like a raindrop in a storm, where we just can't get effective. I'd love to see some donors. Yeah. So the way we measure the targeting is by the population, right? So we like to look at the success of Las Vegas. It's about 650,000 people, and they run a budget of about $6,500 a month, and it does a really good job. If you're looking at
that's about half the size of the Bronx in population. And the Bronx has a like a 35 to 37% abortion rate.
Yeah, and then you layer on the cost of the ads, right, Pastor Chuck? The cost of the ads in New York City is exponentially more than it is in Las Vegas, because it's just New York. It's the same as milk. If you go down to the store, you're going to pay $10 for a gallon of milk, where you just pay $5 in Las Vegas for it. So the ads seem to be about 2 to 3 times higher in cost for us to land those positions, and then the population itself. But listen, we're getting saves, we're getting wins there, but we're much more effective when we go into a smaller population, and we can be the 800-pound gorilla in the room, where they're getting that messaging, they're getting it on their dating apps, their texting apps, they're getting it on their weather apps, they're getting it on TMZ, they're getting it on Daily Beast when they go there. They're getting the messaging everywhere, so it looks more credible than just getting it maybe 1 ad a day or 2 ads a day, if we're even reaching them, because the population is just so large. So some things we've had to do for Chris is we've had to exclude males altogether. Males are 60% of the abortion industry, Planned Parenthood and the
I would never
abortion
thought
clinics.
that. I just thought it was all female and maybe 5 or 10%. You know, the boyfriends are always influencing the girls, but I didn't know you target them. Yeah.
Well, that's data
I'm not
science. If you
saying
go
that my incoming calls are not 60% men.
no,
It might be
but
25%. But the men look up the location of the abortion clinics and the phone numbers for the women.
Okay.
And sometimes they're doing it in pressure
Right.
and coercion on the women. You're going to get an abortion. Here's the
Right.
number. Give
Right.
them a call.
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
That
the
makes
data
sense.
science backs it up. You could look at Ulta makeup stores, right? Ulta makeup stores are in just about every strip mall or every other strip mall, and that's where young women get their makeup. If you go into the data science of their sites and you look at what their demographic is and the people that go to their website, it's 18 to 34-year-old women and 15% male. And maybe that's men buying stuff for their women, or maybe that's transies in there too. Who knows?
Right.
But that's pretty accurate. You would expect it to be that way. You'd probably want to go over to Planned Parenthood and the abortion clinics, and it should probably look the same, but it doesn't. It's a stark difference. When you go over there and you look at the data science and the demographics of who's actually on their websites, it's 60% male, and the age rate is 45 to 55 years old is the majority of it. So that
Right.
that opens up a lot of things that people don't want to talk about, like trafficking, the sex industry, pimps, and all that. When is that going to become unacceptable in this country?
Right.
Because these animals are putting pressure on your daughter, your cousin, your neighbor, your child that you know who was on the milk carton and now is missing. I mean,
Right.
those are the victims in this world. Planned Parenthood for sure, and the abortion industry. They know who their client is. Their client are males, and the males are coercing the women into the abortions, and the data doesn't lie.
I'd like to switch the subject. We've got about 20 minutes left.
Yeah.
One of the biggest decisions in the last 50 years in the abortion battle is about to come down out of Amarillo, Texas.
You want me to bring up the
Lawsuit that was filed by the Alliance Defending Freedom. That is a decision that would potentially overturn the legalization of abortion pills. The abortion pill regimen is a 2-pill set of misoprostol and methotrexate. And the argument is that, from the pro-life side, is that the pills were illicitly and in poor science approved by the FDA. What has been the buzzword for the last 3 years coming from the left? Follow the science. There's been so much bogus science in our country in the last 20, 30 years. I just finished an article in The Economist magazine, the British News Weekly, which I happen to previously work for, but way back in the 80s. They discovered, there are organizations that are tracking this, that 1 out of 50, most likely, 1 out of 50 peer-reviewed published articles in scientific journals are complete hoaxes. The articles are based on fictitious numbers. This is a crisis in medicine, and we saw, and I don't want to get off on the rabbit trail of COVID and all that, and Fauci and the CDC and their legitimacy, but the FDA is definitely implicated in very poor science. Administration pressure, political pressure, not scientific pressure. They've just approved the use of pills without face-to-face interaction with physicians, so that CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aids across the nation. Now, there are 20 states or more that may not allow it, red states primarily, but there are literally tens of thousands. There are probably over 20,000 pharmacies that will be potentially become new abortion sites.
Wow.
It's going to revolutionize the abortion industry. You'll be able to do an online appointment, maybe a phone consultation, maybe a video cam consultation. You get a prescription at the pharmacy, and you just go pick it up or have it delivered. And you do your abortion at home. Your home is the actual abortion site. You don't even take the pills, the first set of pills, in front of the pharmacist. You probably are going to take them at home. There are two sets of pills. Now, the federal court case out of Amarillo, Texas, which is within the Fifth Circuit, is a judge that was appointed by Trump. I don't recall his name. I believe it's a Polish name, but
was that under the CBN News or the court review? Did you send me the link?
It's not in these articles I sent you. This is a different topic. This decision on the legality of the first regimen of abortion pills, if this judge declares a nationwide ban or suspension of the use of the abortion pills, will be revolutionary. It will be blockbuster. It probably will result in riots and destruction and more vandalism and firebombing of pregnancy centers, which took place last summer after the U.S. Supreme Court. The Dobbs case was the case that led to the overturn of Roe v. Wade, which had legalized abortion on January 22nd, 1973 nationwide. So now abortion is outlawed in about 15 to 20 states, red states, and we're looking at possibly a major contributor to abortion being outlawed in all states, potentially by this court. Now, the Fifth Circuit, where the no doubt the pro-aborts, Planned Parenthood, and cohorts will appeal the decision that goes against them immediately to the Fifth Circuit. And they're going to be stymied there because that court is very conservative and it's got a long track record of conservative decisions. So did they judge pick? Yeah, the pro-aborts have been doing that for 50, 60 years. It's like, should Republicans do ballot harvesting? Hello? Would you like to win the next presidential election? Would you like to wake up to the new reality that you got to play by their rules, not just your own rules? As long as it's legal, you got to play the game and play a game of hardball, not soft.
Right.
I played a game of hardball. Why did no Christian churches, Catholic churches, Christian or Catholic apostolates join my join in as amici amicus in my case for these laws that would force abortion employees? What the hell?
Well,
where is the Christian community when it comes to rubber meet the road? If we don't hit the courts and hit them hard now, I mean, Trump appointed many good federal judges and packed the Supreme Court, packed the many federal courts of appeals. This is our time for the courts. The other side has won many a victory in the courts. And pregnancy centers that think they can sit back as we're being crushed with advertising, we're being crushed with, and new laws are going to be coming to crush our advertising, call it deceptive, restrict our operations. It's happened in New York and California. It's happened in other states.
Well, if you sit back and do nothing, evil men prosper. That's, at the end of the day, that's the call to action. And that's why we do this show, Choose Life.
Pretty much maternity homes are pretty safe. They don't really advertise for clients. It's word of mouth that gets them in there. I'm not saying pro-aborts like maternity homes, but they don't detest them like they detest pregnancy centers.
Right.
I mean, Kamala Harris and Pocahontas up in Massachusetts, Senator Warren, they absolutely despise pregnancy centers with a passion.
Right.
They have been fighting behind the scenes to kill, cripple, wound us, and they will not give up. Biden is 100% against our pregnancy centers. The FBI has had a pathetic response to the scores and scores of fire bombings and vandalism and death threats and graffiti and against pregnancy centers. It's just a joke. They are swooping up those that do peaceful, nonviolent sit-ins and giving them potential 12-year charges. When we saw in the summer of 2020, how many of these anarchists who used extreme violence against police, injured and killed police, and firebombed federal facilities, how many of them were charged with crimes for a dozen years? Give us a break. Even the FBI and the feds charged suspected Chinese spies with 11-year jail sentences. So guys that are committing espionage at the highest levels are considered less a threat than men and women who sit on the floor of an abortion clinic and harm and hurt no one.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. So
Wow.
we are in hostile territory. Thankfully, this current Republican administration in the House, the current House of Representatives, is carrying out a very good investigation. There is 17 FBI whistleblowers are going to get their chance to disclose the bias, prejudice, deep state agenda that they've displayed this past year, post-Dobbs, against the pro-life movement. This is a movement where we saw just about a month ago, where a memo came out of Richmond, Virginia, from a field office there of the FBI that said a great threat to America are Catholic conservatives.
Yeah.
Just because they're Catholic and just because they're conservative or traditionalist leaning, they are a great threat.
Wow. Yeah.
Where's China? Where's the shakedown of all the Chinese communist infiltrators throughout our universities, our corporate world, our government world, who have been employed by U.S. senators and congressmen and are spies? Where are the charges against these people? I mean, everything is upside down
Good question.
and against
Good
us.
question. Yeah. Frank, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's a mess. I mean, the whole situation. It's very defeating. You know, I don't know if we have time enough to mention it, but there's an article that was out on Mother Jones, which
we have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes. We should speak about that. And that goes into the money with the abortion pill and how it was funded through this country, through private equity firms that hid themselves on offshore companies, the Caymans. And Chris can share that article with you. I don't know, have you seen that, Chuck?
Is that the
Mother Jones article?
Is that the one you sent?
No, I didn't send that to you.
Okay.
It's very revealing, but it names names on who these people are, and we really need to go after them. You know, it's disgusting. It was done, and the loose FDA approval was done through this, through this group, through these, it's the characters you would expect in there. Soros, the whole crew is in there funding this secretly, and it's out. It's out in that article, and we should put pressure on these equity firms.
Yeah.
For what they've
done.
What
we saw is again just the more evidence that the entire creation of this abortion pill and regimen was totally political. It was funded by secret major hedge fund managers, organized by the late Lawrence Lader, who was a collaborator with Dr. Bernard Nathanson, the abortion king, the two of them who unleashed abortion out of New York and then contributed to the Roe v. Wade decision as well. If you watch the movie Roe v. Wade, which John Voight is in, you'll see background on Later and Nathanson that's worth watching. But we now have the goods on the perpetrators of the most demonic pills ever consumed that kill children. They are now the majority of abortions performed in the United States. We're going to see battles over gray market, black market abortion pills shipped from overseas, possibly adulterated, possibly extremely dangerous. They are even talking about circuiting around the first abortion pill, the mifepristone. If the mifepristone is banned, the methotrexate could be used just to expel the fetus without it is extremely dangerous. But we've seen the CDC, the FDA, do they give a damn about safety of the public? If we haven't learned, you don't give a hoot.
Wow.
After the debacle of the the vaccinations, so-called vaccinations, and that whole scam thrust on the American people. I'm not saying that the COVID wasn't dangerous and deadly, but
I just sent you the link to it, Chuck.
Got it.
It's the money men behind the abortion pill.
Right.
Okay, so this article, friends, go to this article. If you're not you're watching from a cell phone or you don't have your, just go to motherjones.com and then just search on their site for abortion pill, private equity. Just search motherjones.com.
Abortion pill secret.
Pill private equity. Yeah. This is a
abortion pill secret.
This is the most telling, most damaging. And guess what? The major media and the Christian media have ignored this story. I haven't seen anything on this story. Right, Frank?
Yeah. And it's legit because it comes out of a couple of these pro-abort pill greedsters took each other to court. And that's where the dirty laundry has come out.
Wow.
But it's amazing how long they'll sit and they'll plan for something like this. And they're reaping the benefits of it right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are, this judge in Amarillo is under the extreme hot seat. And if he rules against the use of mifepristone for medical and scientific reasons, that it was dangerous, it was illicit for the FDA to approve its use, he is going to be the most wanted man in America by the pro-aborts. He will have to have a phalanx of security guards. They will try to assassinate him. As they tried to do, it was a crazy that tried to assassinate not Chief Justice, one of the justices of the Supreme Court, Kavanaugh. And they were still legally protesting at the conservative judges in contradiction to Secret Service law that prohibits protests of judges' houses or officers of the court or staff of the court. It's a federal crime to do that. And you have a pro-lifer who puts his butt on the sidewalk in front of an abortion clinic front door or in the lobby of the waiting room.
Yep.
Criminals, 13 years in jail.
Yeah.
We just saw this man, Mark Houck, who had been arrested in early morning raid on his house with guns drawn by a SWAT team of FBI agents. He just won his court case. It's dismissed. He was brought up on Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act charges in Philadelphia, and they lost the case. So when the public gets the facts, they're rejecting what the FBI is doing. And thank God for Jim Jordan in Congress, who is calling out these whistleblowers. I think most of them had fired in the FBI, or formerly in the FBI, know about the targeting of pro-lifers, the sinister double standards of looking the other way at firebombings, Molotov cocktails, graffiti, windows blown out, churches desecrated. For that, the church desecration goes back years. But the pregnancy center targeting, I tell you what, it's going to get really bad if this judge in Amarillo rules against the abortion pills.
Yeah.
It's going to get wild. It's going to be the
I
wild
can only
west.
hope that he's read the Mother Jones article to help him with his decision. If anyone has any insight into getting that article out to Amarillo, Texas, I think it would be helpful.
I think the thrust
Or some publicity on it.
of the story is more about the thrust of the case is more about the medical short circuiting and the end run on medical facts, just like what happened with the CDC and how they covered up for the Wuhan lab in China.
Yeah.
We saw so much propaganda propping up the COVID myths of the beauty of booster shots and low risk of side effects from COVID or I shouldn't say COVID, from vaccinations and boosters.
Yeah, right.
And that's turned out to be a medical disaster for many Americans.
Yeah. Well, we got about 2 minutes left. I definitely want to close in prayer.
Having suffered and died.
Yeah,
for sure.
But anyway, many Americans made this their cause the last 3 years. Okay, fine. That battle can still be fought by some people. But we still have 750,000 to 1 million children whose lives are at risk in this country. Many of the women from the blue states are inviting friends from the red states to come stay with them, or we'll find you free accommodations here. We'll find you free abortions here in New York or California. Come to us. We'll take care of you. You can get your abortion. Don't worry about it.
Well, this episode is going to rebroadcast this Sunday night, and also right now as we're broadcasting, last week was rebroadcasting again while we record them. Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV. We've got about a minute and a half left with a 40-second close. Let's pray. Certainly, I appreciate both of you guys, your diligence, your expertise, especially keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on and raising awareness so people can pray about what they can do to be an advocate, to get involved, and praying for one another is the most powerful thing we can do. Who wants to lead us in prayer? And I'll close.
I will. Dear Lord, victory is possible, is certain through you. We've ultimately won the battle for our redemption through your suffering and death on the cross and resurrection on Easter morning. We have been saved, but we must follow your commandments. We must choose life and rescue the innocent. Only we Christians are focused on saving the innocent. Teach us the ways to do it, Lord. Give us the insights. Give us the tools. Bring us the partners we need. I thank God for Chuck. I thank God for Frank's son, Max, and many others that he works with to produce cutting-edge ways to rescue children. Thank you to all of those fighting for life. Through Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Till next week on Choose Life, may you and your families be blessed. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today, brothers.
Thank you, fellas. God bless you.
Keep up the God work.